Patrick Pacheco, I didn't see you there. I was just reading your book.
Oh, really?
Well,
I'm so impressed. Yes, the American Theater Wing and Oral History.
The oral history. It is fantastic.
Well,
I'm learning so much.
Thank you. I'm so glad I showed up.
I love this.
Yes, 100 years, 100 voices, 100 million miracles. I had a great resource of people to talk to and a deep dive into the history of the American Theater Wing.
All right, well, Patrick, you are, first of all, you're incredible. You're one of the kindest, nicest people I know. You are a journalist. You have edited books. You have written plays. You have a regular show on CUNY TV. You have written for the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the LA Times, amongst many others. But the question that is on my mind is, how do you take your tea?
Great. I take my tea black.
You got it. You got it. Cheers. Welcome
Cheers.
to Hot Tea with Friends. I'm so happy that you're here.
It's great to be here. I think I'm looking at Algernon Moncrief.
It must be strange being on the other side because you have interviewed hundreds of people on video and in paper and print and digitally. I'm just curious, like, how do you get people to let their guard down? Like, any advice?
Well, I think that number one, I realize it's such a privilege, especially to interview your heroes. I mean, I stumbled into this, and I'm a nosy Parker, as they say. I think that's a British term. You know, I'm just so nosy, and it gives you carte blanche to ask whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I think the key to being a good interviewer is to do your research.
Yeah.
Because the celebrities especially, have been interviewed 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And the money shot is when they say, I've never been asked that before.
Really?
Or they say, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Because then they have to pause and sort of think about it to answer it. So that's what I'm always going for in the course of an interview. I figured that if I get either of those two responses, the interview is going well. But absolute research, so that you're not asking the same questions over and over again.
How did you develop that skill? Was that something, because you've been doing this for quite a while, was that to be a great interviewer and a great journalist, like when did you sort of feel like it clicked?
Well, it was a baptism by fire, basically. You just sort of learn. I was just thrown at the deep end of the pool. Yeah. Because, I came to New York, just excited to be in New York.
Yeah. When was that?
In 1972. I'm not even gonna try to fudge
New York
my age.
in 1972.
I arrived in October 1972. Didn't have a job. Didn't have any money. I arrived here from Europe with about $17 in my pocket. And this is something, is that if you come to New York, and E.B. White, the great writer who writes about New York, says, if you come to New York, you must be prepared to be lucky. And by that, he sort of meant you must be prepared to be open to the opportunities that are going to present itself, because New York City is a city that is an open city in so many different ways. I arrived in New York and I was open to the opportunities, and it opened its heart to me, I felt. And I walked through those doors, even if it was scary at times. Eleanor Roosevelt says you should do one thing frightening every day of your life.
Yeah, and in New York City, it's quite a lot of frightening things, isn't it?
And it's quite easy to do something frightening just walking out the door,
The frightening part is all the money you spend walking out the door. Right?
That's true. That is true. But I had no money. I had $17 in my pocket. But when I was in California, and having graduated from UCLA with just a degree in English and not knowing what I was going to do, I just knew that I had to come to New York. Yeah. That was sparked by two things. Once, I stayed overnight at a friend's house, a would-be friend, and he put on this strange record when we woke up in the morning. And I said, what is that? And he said, and it was, Bobby, baby, Bobby, Booba, da 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 da. I said, that is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. And he said, yeah, it's a new musical by Stephen Sondheim. First time I ever heard those words. And then I heard another 100 people just got off of the train and the bus and the train and another 100 people just and I thought, I've got to go to New York. It crystallized in that moment.
Yeah, tell me about it. After Dark.
It was this quasi-gay magazine, but it was kind of closeted so that you could put it on your coffee table, and it was kind of like a friend of Dorothy's, sort of a symbol among gay men in the 70s who were still, many of them were still in the closet, including myself to some extent.
Really?
But he had it on the coffee table, and I remember looking at it, and it was this homoerotic photography by Ken Duncan, and it just gave me a thrill. And I thought if I could combine New York City and After Dark magazine, so I immediately looked on the masthead and saw that it was at 10 Columbus Circle, and Bill Como was the editor. And I wrote a note before I left for Europe, for my first trip to Europe. I wrote a note just saying, I'm going to be in New York and I would love to work at this magazine. And so when 3 months later, in October of 1972, I went up to the offices of After Dark magazine, and they said, well, we don't have any openings right now, but check with us later. So I was lucky because I knew a friend of a friend who was a New York Playboy bunny at the Playboy Club.
Oh my God.
She generously allowed me to stay with her because, as I said, I had no money. I stayed at the West Side Y the first night.
Yeah.
And then Mary Chipman, God bless her, said, here's the key to my apartment. Why don't you stay with me, crash with me while you're getting your, sea legs in New York. And she had an answering service. So when I was at After Dark, they said to leave a phone number. So I left Mary Chipman's answering service number. That's the only thing I had. And 3 days later, I came back to the apartment and she said, there was a message for you from After Dark magazine. They fired somebody and can you start on tomorrow? So within 4 days of my arrival in New York, I was working at After Dark magazine. First hired, I suppose, as a go-for. But within, I'd say, 2 weeks, the editor, Bill Como, said, look, I'm going to fly you to Pittsburgh to interview Carol Channing. You know who Carol Channing is?
And that was your first interview?
That was my first interview.
Okay, what happened there?
Well, she was touring in a thing called in a musical called Lorelei. This was the pre-Broadway tryout. It was then coming to Broadway. It was a musical revival of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, but they called it Lorelei.
Okay.
So it was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And they said, I don't know if this is appropriate for tea time.
Please.
But
spill the tea.
They said Charles Lowe was her husband at the time. Yeah. So he met me backstage and he said, Carol's waiting for you, just go down the hallway. It's the first door to the left. You don't have to bother to knock. I may have knocked, but I remembered going in and she was just sitting there in pantyhose and topless. And
topless.
Topless. And just in pantyhose. She had come off the, that was my first encounter with, God bless her, Carol Channing. And she was a total pro.
Yeah.
But the first thing I learned about it is that she was not Muzzy Van Horn. If I knew Carol Channing, it was because I knew she was the iconic star of Hello, Dolly.
Right.
But I also knew her from Thoroughly Modern Millie.
Right.
When she was shot out of a cannon.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of expecting Muzzy Van Horn or, Dolly Gallagher-Levon.
Yeah.
But she was all business.
Really?
She just said sort of, now what would you like to know, dear? And we were off and running.
That is amazing. And that's really what started your illustrious career of working with so many greats, especially Chita Rivera, which you became really good friends with and wrote her memoir, right? Talk to me about her.
Yeah, I mean, Chita's, we all know, is an extraordinary and iconic performer.
Yeah.
And so I only, I was just a punk-ass reporter, and she was this glamorous star when I first arrived in New York. And so our lives were bookended between the first time I laid eyes on her, which was in a dingy gay bar called the Grand Finale on West 70 in the West 70s.
Oh my God, this sounds amazing.
And what happened is that Bob Fosse had a heart attack during the rehearsals for Chicago, which delayed the opening of Chicago and left the cast sort of at loose ends while he recuperated.
Okay.
So Freddie Ebb.
That was the first heart attack, right? That was
the first one. Yeah, it would later obviously kill him some years later.
We just had Irene Gandy, who was literally the one to tell, because she was the press rep on tour, told people that he had just had a heart attack on tour. I mean, it is so bizarre that you're talking about this right now.
The legendary and lovable Irene Gandy.
Yes, I mean, she's the best.
She is the best. She's iconic.
She really is.
I can only wait to hear that interview.
She gave it is one story after the other, and I was like, do you want me to edit this? And she was like, no, I want it all out.
She's the gold standard.
Yes.
So Irene Gandy came into the rehearsal room, said, Bob's had a heart attack. We're delayed now for a couple of months. So Freddie Ebb went to Chita and said, look, I'll write a club act. And that was the debut, basically, relatively. She had had some club performances prior to this with two women in Puerto Rico. But this was Chita and her boys were premiering at the Grand Finale, this dingy gay bar on the West 70s, in January of 1975. That's the first time I ever laid eyes on her.
Yeah.
It was ironic because that was the first book, that was the first sort of meeting of Chita, and that was just in adoration to some extent because she was such a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And when she made her club debut, she was the toast of New York.
Yeah.
It was intense because Chita said, Freddie, I can't do a club act. I need a character to hide behind. I can't be me in front of an audience. And Freddie said, I'll create you in front of an audience the way I created Liza in front of an audience. So Freddie, all the Liza gestures, this kind of thing and that kind of thing, that's all Freddie.
It's all
Freddie says,
amazing.
Do this, Liza, do this. Now at this time, do this. Now you raise your hand. Now do this. Freddie would always sort of coach Liza to the minute in her cabaret act, and he did the same thing for Chita, for which she was very, very grateful.
Yeah.
That was the first time I laid eyes on Chita, and little knowing that we would have an adventure together.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call Chita a friend because celebrities don't have friends.
Really?
They have friends, but I'd say that
in the industry,
50% or 75% of the people that say I'm good friends with Angela Lansbury or Chita Rivera or Julie Andrews, that's not what is in the mind of the celebrity.
I see.
It's himself, herself, themselves.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mutual admiration society. It's transactional.
Right.
So much of our relationships with stars are transactional, and I understand that. So I often think I'm more than a professional acquaintance with Chita, less than a friend. More of a professional acquaintance with Angie, and I can call her Angie because we've had a lot of experiences together with Angela Lansbury.
Yeah.
But less than a friend.
Yeah.
I really can't say I'm friends with Angie. We don't hang out. We don't go to dinners. We don't go to shows together.
Well, this is actually a really interesting idea. The idea of what is a friend, because you work with so many people and you see them all the time, and then all of a sudden, they're so much a part of your life, but then they're not a friend. Like, how do you define that? I know who my friends are because I know their families, I know their background, I know what they're going through, I know when they're in a bum mood, I know when they're in a great mood, I know their triumphs, I know their failures. That's a friend. And it I can talk to, say, Julie Andrews. And I'm at a point in terms of interviewing her, and I've interviewed her about 3 or 4 times, where she says, I can't do that because my
audience would never accept it. You know, she knows very much what her image is, and she knows what she can do and what she can't do.
Wow.
You know, so talking about Christopher Plummer, yes, I like him, but the subtext of that is we're not really friends. We don't hang out.
Yeah.
You know, we work together, but people are always trying to put us together, and that's just not the case.
Yeah.
You know, so it's things like that. You work with people, you're tightly bonded in a show, you circle the wagons if you're in trouble,
Right.
and you rejoice when everything goes well. Then you go on to the other project.
Right.
And you think, we've got to get together, we've got to stay together, this has been a great experience. And that slowly kind of seeps out as you now have a new family and you're moving through. So for a celebrity, as they're moving through life, they kind of realize the important people, the nucleus of really important people, most of the ones that have started with them before they ever became a star.
Right.
And their family, as sometimes ups and downs as that can be, are just, you know, the centers of their lives.
Right.
And everything else is part of a spotlight and a public personality.
Mm-hmm.
So Chita was the warmest person in the world, the loveliest. Everybody
Everyone
thought
loved her.
they were Chita's best friend.
She had that sparkle in her eye, right? That it was like literal, like when people talk about a sparkle in the eye, she had it. It was just actual sparkle.
Right,
It's
but
amazing.
when we were working together in her house, you know, we would be talking, the phone would ring, and she would have her Chita voice on, you know, hello, and then she was, can't talk now, just hang up, you know, it was just.
I love that.
You know, so I understood that. Just to come back around to Chita, God love her, I would occasionally interview her, and then I did the underlying interviews for her show, The Dancer's Life.
Yes.
You know, The Dancer's Life on Broadway.
So what did you do with that? You did the in-between parts, right?
Well, Terrence McNally was hired to write the book for Chita, The Dancer's Life. And so they said he doesn't want to do the underlying interviews with Chita, so Chita recommended that you do them and then deliver them to Terrence, out of which he would then form the book.
Oh, wow.
Write the book. So that was just so much fun. You can't imagine how much fun that was, because we'd go to West Bank, we'd sit at Chita's table in the corner and knock back Cosmos for about an hour and a half. And she would like talk about what she wanted in the show. Then she would put her hand over her glass and say, okay, this is just between us. This can't be, you know, in the show. But, you know, Paul Lynn, blah, 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 or whatever. She would put it not over the teacup, she would put it, well, it wasn't a teacup, we were drinking Cosmos. She'd put it over the tape recorder.
Oh,
she would put her hand over the tape recorder.
How do you do that? Like, how do you take, because you know, in some ways I feel like you are not more than a journalist, you're a historian in some ways, right? You really do have this breadth of knowledge and understanding of this industry. How do you think about, because I know you're doing this right now because you're writing a memoir. Am I allowed to say that?
Sure.
Great. So you're actually writing a memoir, which is fantastic. How do you even, like even this book, like how do you even put it together and know the order and know the stories? Like how do you do that?
Well, you first come up with a concept. It's true for any work of art. You know, I mean, and I'm not saying that that's a work of art. I'm not saying that my memoir is a work of art. I'm just saying with any creative process, the first thing you ask yourself is, what is this about?
Okay.
It's the first thing that any writer asks about a play or a show or a musical. Yeah. What is this about? You know, there's the famous story of Fiddler on the Roof. That was a disaster out of town. It was almost about to close. And they had just been in Detroit or one of the out of town tryouts, and the reviews were terrible. Variety was terrible. So the cast was at the bar after, you know, the opening night party for that town, and they saw Jerry Robbins at the bar and said, "Jerry, what are we going to do? It's not working." And Jerome Robbins said, what is the show about? And so Bach and Harnick and Joe Stein said, well, it's about a milkman who's marrying off his daughters. And Jerry Robbins said, no. That's not what, you're telling me the plot. What is the show about? And they said, well, if it's about anything, it's about tradition. So Jerry Robbins then just said, okay, Bach Harnick, go write a song. He put it in the next day, and the rest is history.
Oh, my God.
Because that happens all the time.
Right.
What is it about?
What is it about?
The same thing happened with, the funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. It was very confused. The audiences didn't know how to take it. There were these people running around in togas.
Yeah.
And then Sondheim wrote Comedy Tonight.
Yeah.
And then the audience knew what they were in for.
Do you think nowadays, when we see shows on Broadway, sometimes, even shows in development, sometimes I often wonder, what is this about? Do you think we've lost the person who's asking that? I mean, what do you think is, and have you experienced that when you're seeing the things that are being produced right now?
First of all, it's a miracle that anything works in the theater because there's so many moving parts.
Yeah.
So I have the greatest admiration and respect
Me too.
for anybody, even if it's a disaster like Queen of Versailles.
Oh.
I mean, we've all sat through major disasters.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there in the audience.
I've worked on many of them.
And you're thinking, what were they thinking?
Yeah.
And nobody goes out to write a flop. Nobody goes out to do anything other than create a hit or something that people will like as much as they do.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes they lose the thread of what they were going for.
Right.
And all the people the collaboration is incredibly, as you know, Jim, so important.
Yes.
So everybody's got to be on the same page, and sometimes not everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
And when you're pulling against other people and debating, although that can, lead. I remembered one playwright I was interviewing said, I really know it's working if we're having really great fights.
Oh.
So that's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
But the other thing, too, is that we both know that there are productions in which people are fighting and just going hammer and tong at each other.
Yeah.
They'll never work with these people again, and it turns out to be a big hit.
Yeah.
There are other times when people are so unified and it's such a joyous experience and it's a flop.
Yeah.
So, as I think William Goldman said about the film industry, nobody knows nothing.
Yep.
And,
That's
Hal Prince had 6 consecutive flops just before Phantom. So
That's right. Oh my God. Like, there is no rhyme or reason, right? It's a lot of experience, and so many people now, it feels like there are a lot of new writers, which we need, right? You get it there's so many composers and then they move over to television and film, so we lose our the experience, right? Because they essentially move over. So we're putting a lot of trust in a lot of people that may not have the experience or time.
Yeah, and it's all a question of making I'm going to pour your tea because you're not supposed to pour your own tea. It's, I think, an Asian tradition.
Oh, I love this.
So
you're mother now.
I'm mother. And now you can be mother.
Okay, great. I love this. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. I'll have to do that.
Thank you.
What are you reading right now?
Oh, what am I reading?
Yeah.
Well, I just started because I have such little time to read, and
yeah.
I confess that I'm not as well read as I should be. So whenever I read something, it's generally because I'm going to interview the person.
Okay.
Say Jeffrey Seller's great memoir.
Oh yes.
Was just terrific. It shows a great mind at work. He's had an extraordinary career and extraordinary number of hits.
Yeah.
But so many of them, were not necessarily a smooth ride.
Yeah.
Even, Rent. We realize that we think that shows in development just get better and better and better.
Yeah.
They don't. Not all the time.
Okay.
They can go backwards. So a show that is really good at some point, or really on its way,
Yeah.
can take a next step, as Rent did, and it's in Jeffrey's memoir. And it was worse. It
Wow.
became worse. And it was a tough, very tough conversation he had with Jonathan Larson, in which he said, I'm sorry, but you've gone down the wrong track here. It's not good. You've got to go back and get back on track. And it was a tough conversation, and Jonathan Larson did not want to hear it. But Jeffrey was able to talk to him
Yeah.
in a way, and that's a producer's probably most important talent.
Yeah.
Is how to talk to your creative artists that don't discourage them
Right.
and freak them out, and get them to keep working forward. Not with the solutions that you provide, because you don't know.
Right.
Producer doesn't know.
Yeah.
You know.
That's great. That's actually really great advice for up-and-coming producers, is just that balance, the conversation, relationship. It's not just the money and the talent, right? It is a relationship, and that
How to
trust.
talk to artists.
Yeah.
You could write a book on.
Oh my
on
God,
it.
you should do that. Is that
I
your
think
next
you
book?
should.
Oh my God, how to talk to artists. A lot of it is just meeting them where they are, right? And like, why are you stuck on this, right? Like, what do you not see that so I deal with that a lot too in marketing, is that I'll approach a producer and be like, look, people are saying this about your show, right? Like, you have a chance to change it, and then it's like too late, or there's no opportunity to do that. And then it opens, and literally what was reflected was in the reviews, and then we deal with what the consequences of that are.
Because that's what artists do all the time. They
Yeah.
deal with the consequences. And so they figure, look,
Yes.
if it's going to be on me, then it's going to be, I'm going to make this mistake.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
You know, because if I then do what everybody is telling me to do, and I don't think it's part of my vision,
Yeah.
then as an artist, and if it's not out of ego or stubbornness,
Right.
but it's out of your concept and your vision, and you want to stay true to that, even if you go off the cliff with it,
Yeah.
then at least you went off the cliff with your vision.
With your vision. Yeah.
I don't know how much of consolation that is, but then you go on.
Have you ever witnessed, in your experience with all of the work that you have done, have you experienced a sort of clash like this firsthand? Have you seen it being in a room or in a moment?
Most of the time, it's hearsay. Well, because the press, they don't allow the press into any
Nope.
part of the development, or
Nope.
they keep the press away as long as possible.
Yeah.
With good reason.
Yeah.
Out of respect for the artist process.
Right.
You know, so you don't want, ants at the picnic.
Yeah.
The best lesson that I learned from Peter Schneider, who's a producer, a great
Yeah.
producer.
Love.
And I remembered that, I was a part of the press then, and just the press.
Yeah.
And I said, so Peter, how do artists think about the press? How does the press fit into the larger picture of productions, whether it's film productions or theater productions? And there's a difference in the power.
Yeah.
But he said, I think the press think they're more important than they are to the process, which made sense to me.
Okay.
Because I know my colleagues, and I know, and as a press person myself,
Yeah.
I know how puffed up with self-importance I am, and we are.
Wow.
I think that they're puffed up. I mean, if you ever sit in a colloquy of press people, especially critics, you get a strong dose of ego
Yeah.
and competition.
God love him. Yes.
You really do.
Yeah.
So that made sense to me when Peter said it.
Yeah.
You guys think you're more important than you are to the process. We're
Yeah.
not saying that you're not important,
Right.
but I think you think you're more important than you are.
What do you think about the idea that so many people want to be invited into the process, and especially with social media, right? Like, cameras in the room. Like, I get it all the time. It's like, we got to be in the room for rehearsal. And I balance this, knowing the delicate nature of what it takes to put on a show, but also having to cover it so that we generate interest before there is even a first performance. I'm curious, what is your take on that perspective and social media in general?
Well, I think you in your position, and the position of publicists and marketers,
Yeah.
as yourself, you have to tame the beast.
Yeah.
And you have to make it work for yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to make it work for your producer and for the artist and for the show.
Yeah.
However way you do that, you need to do that.
Yeah.
If that means no.
Yeah.
And most of the times you hear a no. And most of the times you try to manipulate. Well, we won't give you this person from the cast. We'll give you this other person from the cast because the other people that you do want is getting too much attention.
Yeah.
And these people are feeling neglected, and we've got to make them feel less. And you think, no, I don't want those two people.
Yeah.
I want those two people. So it's this dance that we have all the time in terms of coverage.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, I think this Roger Rees, God bless him, the late Roger Rees, said, whatever we do is important, but not self-important.
Okay. That's great advice.
So I think the greatest thing that an artist does is humility. Chita's greatness, and I think somebody who was her music director, and she didn't have a great voice, but she had a great actor's voice.
Okay.
And I think the person said to me, Chita is a great singer because she's humble. Her humility is endemic to her greatness as a vocalist.
Yeah.
You never sort of think of that, but it was really true.
It makes her approachable as well. Like, you can relate.
Exactly. And I think every celebrity that I've ever interviewed or written about, the most successful ones, the ones that have been able to tread a very dangerous path of celebrity, is that on a fundamental level, they know they're lucky. They know that they're lucky.
Yeah.
They know they've seen people that have been more talented than they were. They know people that could have been bigger stars or just as big a star as they were, but they fell through the cracks because they didn't get the opportunities that Chita got through her association with Hal Prince and Freddie and John, and Jerry and everybody else.
Yeah.
So I think that's the fundamental quality, I think, that makes a great artist is their humility.
Your perspective as a journalist, writer, playwright, do you think Broadway is in trouble? Everyone keeps saying that, but do you think it is? Talk to me.
Well, I think Broadway's always in trouble. I mean, so what's new?
Yes.
Because when I arrived in
So what's new?
when I arrived in New York, there's that great line from A Chorus Line, right? One of the characters said, "I wish people would stop talking about Broadway is dead because I just got here." So there will always be the ups and downs. When I first came to Broadway, for a good stretch of the 70s and 80s, half of the theaters were dark.
That's true.
There was the sign-on for, Dude on the Broadway Theater. I think it was the Broadway Theater. Dude closed, after 3 performances, and that sign was on the Broadway Theater for years before anything else came, into it. So we were very spoiled pre-COVID, that the Broadway business was booming.
Yeah.
I think the relentless question, and I don't know how you solve it, is the price of tickets, which is absolutely infuriating.
Yeah.
Absolutely infuriating.
And the cost of a show to make. The weeklies are insane. Like, some shows cost $1 million a week to make. So the price of the ticket is expensive, and it's... Jeffrey made the very good point. Jeffrey Suller made the very good point that, when TVs came out, they were really expensive. Widescreen TVs came out. Flat screen TVs came out. They were very expensive. They found a cheaper way to make them, and the price dropped precipitously. Yeah.
Broadway is a handmade, industry. Mm-hmm. It's people that make it. And inflation comes, and that reduces it, and then the cost of living increases. So you got to pay your artists decent enough wages. Yeah. Broadway is handmade. Yeah. So you have to pay the hands that make it, and that's a major part of the problem.
Right. One that is going to take a minute to solve. We don't have enough time to talk about that.
But I think Broadway is full of optimists. You have to be optimistic to even get into the business.
Oh, 100%. And it takes a lot of optimism to keep going, right? So what do you make of Trump's announced Kennedy Center's revisions? I hear he's putting in marble armrests. Like, this sounds uncomfortable. Talk to me.
I think for any would-be dictator, once that dictator is out of power, their monuments are desecrated.
Yeah.
They are marked. The name on the Trump Kennedy Center will not only be taken down, but before it's taken down, it'll be graffitied.
Yeah.
Everywhere his name is that he's insisting on putting on any building will be desecrated.
Yeah.
Will be defamed.
Yeah. That's history.
Yeah, that's history. So I'm not too concerned about the temporary obscenities that are going on right now. It's just performative.
Yeah.
And it's not going to last.
What role do we as artists have in the government's dismantling of arts funding?
I think that there is protest, but I think that probably more effective than just showing up in the streets, which I think everybody should.
Yeah.
And God bless my niece and her friends who are on the streets of Minneapolis as we speak.
Oh my God.
But the important thing is to get involved on the local level.
Yes.
Start showing up at meetings that have to do with school boards, start voting on school boards, start voting on every little minor issue that affects your community, and get actively involved. And if anybody sits out the midterms, then they have no reason to complain.
This is the big one. I mean, well, last one was the big one, and look at what happened, right?
Right.
Okay, so we're going to play a little game called Sip or Spill. Answer the question in 30 seconds, or sip your tea. Which revival did not need reviving?
I've got 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me think about this. This should be an easy one. Did not need reviving. Ooh. God. Reviving.
You're Desert Island Discs. You're on a deserted island. What 3 albums do you have with you?
Oh boy, that's a hard one. Bruno Mars, because I love Bruno Mars.
Yes.
Bad Bunny.
What?
Definitely.
So good.
And then the Sondheim's Greatest.
What was the most outrageous night of working at After Dark?
Oh boy, there were so many. We had the Ruby Award, which went to the Entertainer of the Year. So it would have to be the Ruby Award in 1974 at the Casino Roost to Bette Midler, who was just starting her career. And so Ethel Merman was there and Mick Jagger was there. And God, it just brought out all the Atlantic Records executives and artists. I'm surprised Aretha Franklin wasn't there.
Who's a theater artist everyone should be paying more attention to?
Oh, boy. I think, well, he doesn't need any more attention, but I think the most exciting performer, and I hope he'll come back to the theater, is Timothée Chalamet. I just hope he comes back to the theater. Please, Timothy, please come back to the theater.
Send this to Timothy. Do you know anyone in the Epstein files?
Yes.
Who?
Julie Taymor.
Wait, but there's also the press rep that was in
Yes, Peggy Siegel.
Peggy Siegel.
You know, I just have to say, I mean, no sympathy necessarily to anybody who messed around, but man, I'm so glad I never knew this person, Jeffrey Epstein. I was probably in the same room because I went to Peggy Siegel's parties.
Her parties,
and I'm sure that he was there, but thank God I don't know anybody with money or nobody that's important.
I hear you have a great story about meeting Liza Minnelli for the first time.
I had gone to Montreal to interview her for a cover story for the Los Angeles Times. So I attended the concert, and then they said, go backstage. Yeah. So I went on in, and she greeted me rapturously and very friendly, and was so warm and so enthusiastic. that it kind of threw me to begin with. And then as people came into the dressing room to offer congratulations or to see her, she would introduce me as her best friend, even though I had just met her, 5 minutes before. So that kind of threw me. And then we had it was a difficult interview, to say the least, but she did give me what I needed for the story. I then published it, perhaps guardedly, and I explained this to my editor, because I said to my editor after my whole experience with Liza, look, this woman has been hurt so much in the past. I don't want to be another person that hurts her. So I'm going to hold back on this interview. I just want you to know the whole story. And the editor said, well, look, why don't you send the story in the way you want to write it? Let me take a look at it. And if I think it hits enough of the marks about her, you don't have to go into more detail about what happened in Montreal. So it was published. It was not a completely honest interview.
Wow.
And she called me up and sent me flowers and said, I'm going to make you the best pot roast you've ever had. And then the next time I bumped into her, which was at a party at the opening night of her Radio City Music Hall show, she pretended like, she didn't pretend. She acted like she had never met me before.
Wow.
She just sort of snubbed me.
Yeah.
I was with a friend who knew her, and she warmly greeted my friend, Carice, and then Carice said, you know Patrick, because Carice had known that I had interviewed her. And Liza said, oh yeah, and then just turned away. So that was just a lesson in celebrity. It's what we were talking about, the whole friendship thing.
Yeah, it's not real, right?
Well, it is for the moment, because it's performative.
Yes, just like a performance, just like live theater.
She was sincere in the moment.
Okay, so Patrick, you work so hard, and you always make honey. So I got you a bee brooch.
Wow.
Because I just thought it was so you.
Real diamonds too.
Yes,
You're just extravagant.
You know it.
There's a Tiffany imprint.
But,
oh my God.
Enjoy
Really,
it.
Jim?
Thank you. Yes. No.
Does this mean we're engaged?
Yes.
This is my first marriage proposal.
Let me put it on you.
Oh,
Here we
thank
go.
you.
So, why do you keep coming back to the theater? What is it about the theater that you just keep coming to?
Well, because it's fun.
Yeah.
It's sacred.
Yeah.
It's emotional.
Yeah.
So it's like, theater is in a way like sex. So when it's bad, you just want it to end. And when it's good, you keep coming back for more.
Yeah. No, it's true.
It really is. It's a thrill beyond just that. It is people putting themselves on the line. And I think everybody that goes to the theater, I think everybody in the theater is really rooting for a success.
Totally agree.
You really want them to, you can rejoice with them. And when everybody in a 12-seat theater or a 1,200-seat theater comes together to one.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it.
Oh, well said. And now Steep Thoughts with Patrick Pacheco.
In America, God help us, there's always talk about winning and losing. Americans do not like losers. So there's always this pressure to quote unquote win. So what does it mean to win? My good friend, Peter Schneider, pointed me to an article in, I believe it was Sports Illustrated. And there was a discussion of what it means to win and lose. And the gist of it was the person at the end of their lives who wins is not the person with the most victories in sports, not the person with the most trophies, not the person with the most money, not the person with the most success. The person who wins at the end of their lives is the person who dies with the best stories. So that's my advice.
Well done.
My fiance.